We are live.
Morning, good morning. It's possibly the last working day of 2023. Some of them of you are already on holiday and are in a holiday mood, but we are ending 2023 with the BW Legal World Saturday Solutions, and me and my editorial colleague, Ms. Ashima already talked to industry leaders today about what is going to happen in the legal services domain, what is their scorecard for 2023, and what to expect in 2024. To be able to carry forward this discussion, we have three legal professionals joining us. Mr. Sudhir Mishra, who's the founder of Trust Legal, who joins us. Thank you, Mr. Mishra. We look forward to your show coming back in 2024, the Sudhir Mishra Show on BW Legal World. As I said, my editorial colleague, managing editor of the BW Legal World, Ms. Ashima Ori, who anchor most of the conversations today. She understands law and has been editing BW Legal World for a while. Ms. Nia Nagpal, who again is a legal professional and has done a lot of work in white-collar crime and runs her own law firm. So thank you, Ms. Nagpal, for joining us. Last not the least, we also have Mr. Lamba, Mr. Manish Lamba, who's the GC of a DLF company who's joining us, who will take us through what happened in 2023, call out the scorecard, and look forward to what will happen in 2024. Let me start by asking Mr. Mishra your opening comments in terms of what were the definitive moments in terms of business of law and at the cross-section of law and business in 2023.
Dr. Batra, many thanks for this. And Ashima, so happy that you are back and taking us to the Saturday seminars, which were a very important phase of our life for many, many years. I think from a law firm perspective, everything has changed in 2023 because there was so much doomsday scenario with regard to 2020 pandemic and consequent what will happen to our economy. So the law firms were a direct beneficiary of the economic boom which happened in 2022 and larger part of 2023, whether it's the IPOs, whether it's the startups, whether the kind of money which was being created, the kind of merger and joint ventures which were happening. But for personally, 2-3 sectors have really surprised me. Apart from, I would say, corporate transactions have increased manyfold, and I'm sure that everybody is aware that how much the deal numbers are speaking for themselves. If you see the newspaper reports, people who cover the legal industry as such, and they call it industry, the growth had been 22 to 25% in last 2 years financially. And a firm like us, which were in top 40 in RSG 2019, I think our best financial year was 22-23. And the reason is something which is beyond me. So the kind of practices which have come to a firm like us is ESG. So 1,000 companies have to report on ESG before, as per the SEBI regulation. And what it has done, it has made another 1,000 companies battle ready to adopt or integrate all their merger acquisitions, funding needs, term sheets with the environment, social and government indicators. So that is one area a lot of businesses happened. I would say arbitration India has become altogether a new center for internationalize, Dr. Batra. India is actually getting aggressive as a country from judicial perspective, from institutional perspective, where all the arbitration centers are directly now talking to the international arbitration forums. So, and the judgments are in sync with whatever is happening on the infrastructure part. And the last bit is the India-UK trade negotiations. Since I'm part of the Door tenancy in London and I spend a lot of time there, the kind of buzz which is there with regard to India opening up, I don't know how much it is going to translate on the ground, but UK has actually taken a lead over others that we will see that India opens up. And the only tricky part why the agreement is not being concluded is the legal services part. So much is on premium on 2024 that if UK manages to get a trade deal within India and legal services open up, that open up legal sector in India, the way auditing firms have done the miracle in India.
Thank you, Mr. Mishra. Clearly, one of the big highlights for 2023 were the opening of the Indian legal services sector for foreign law firms. That was announced, and a lot of law firms did a lot of groundwork in 2023 to be able to move forward on that. Hopefully, in 2024, we will see some partnerships, some joint ventures, some deeper collaboration between law firms which are Indian and law firms that are from the UK and the US and other parts of the world. Now let me go to Ms. Nagpal. Ms. Nagpal, you founded the NM Law Chambers, and again, Mr. Mishra talked about how the legal services domain has grown in 2023 and is likely to grow tremendously in 2024. Our estimates and other estimates have forecasted that in the next 3 years, the legal services pie will quadruple. So it will become 4 times in 3 years, 4 times in 36 months. And it's not surprising because every sector in India is growing. The demand for every product and service is growing. India is an and country. Just to give you 2 examples, a 6,000 rupee mobile phone is selling and a 1.5 lakh rupee mobile phone is selling. The demand for both is robust. If you take cars, the low-end cars are selling. In fact, the high-end cars are selling more. So we would like to know from you, what is your perspective in terms of what has happened in 2023 and how does it prepare for 2024? What do you look forward to in 2024?
Firstly, thank you to both Ashima and you for having me here. And on that note, I'd also say that I hope 2024 is a great year for all of us. And on that note, I'd like to say that personally, I think 2023 was a year of a lot of stability post the pandemic, because we saw 2020 shake us up. 2021, at least Delhi, India as a country in between March and May of 2021, Delhi as a city crumbled with the pandemic. 2022, we were still first half of it somewhere reeling with the pandemic, and we were getting over that. So 2023 started with a lot of hope, a lot of excitement of, okay, fine, we're now actually back to court. And physically back to court. So that has its own advantages for litigating lawyers. The way we can, discuss, ideate, gather live what's happening in court, hear judges, sense the vibe of the court. I think for 2-3 years, we all kind of were lost with that. So that was great. That also suddenly saw a lot more work, because 2020 to 2020, mid 2022, a lot of cases were in the cold storage because of the pandemic. Suddenly there was all that work coming in, and because the economy was booming, you also had a lot more commercial disputes or disputes on tender related matters coming up. So that was also a very interesting dynamic that was playing out. And at the NCLT front, which is also where a lot of my practice is, suddenly the resolution processes were churning up faster. There was a notification by the Ministry of Corporate Affairs that first decide resolution plans and then go on to various applications. So suddenly the heat on resolution plans and resolution applicants was a lot more, consequently on us lawyers. So that there's of course been a lot of robustness within the litigation framework. I think what has made litigation a lot more dynamic in 2023 is the insistence by Justice Chandrachud, the Honorable Chief Justice, is on virtual hearings, regardless of the fact that we're all back in court. What that does is that gives most of us the ability to appear across various jurisdictions. And also at multiple times, we don't have to take passovers from the High Court to the NCLAT or, criminal court. So that way, there has been a lot more quantum of work that one has been able to attend to. But at the same time, there has been a lot of pressure on us as lawyers to also be a lot more present with what we are doing, because the number of distractions in that sense, because of virtual hearings, has gone up. So it's been a very, you have to come into a lot of awareness to know that, okay, there's a lot of responsibility at play here. I feel 2024 is going to be a lot more interesting and dynamic, especially in the areas of white collar crime and insolvency, because now we have a whole new criminal code, a whole new criminal process that's coming in. The overlay and the overlap of that with special pieces of legislation like the Money Laundering Act or the SFIO Act or even UAPA. That's going to be very interesting. It's almost going to be rereading a lot of provisions of the CRPC or the IPC and the Evidence Act. On the insolvency side, where now suddenly, even though personal insolvency was it became effective from the 1st of December 2019, but it's gone through stages of litigation. And finally, Supreme Court has put a quietus to at least the validity of those provisions. So suddenly we're going to see a lot more of that happening. The rules are still ambiguous around that. So there's going to be a lot of back and forth there. So I do see a lot of churn, a lot of movement happening. And yes, I would agree with you that definitely in 36 months, I do see the legal industry, the legal sector per se, both on the corporate side and the litigation side, booming. It's a good time for all of us.
Yeah, and I'll ask this to Mr. Mishra before we go to Mr. Lamba. In 2022 and 21, the law firms, a lot of law firms, rationalized on their manpower. They let go people, right? Do you see 2024 seeing uber recruitment activity? Do you see the number of people working in law firms at both entry levels and at mid levels going up? What is your forecast, both your Mr. Mishra and Ms. Nagpal, in terms of law firms recruiting people? Because in 2020, the law firms downsized, a lot of law firms.
Yeah.
Dr. Batra, I feel that in 2020 and in 2021, most of the serious stakeholders actually didn't downsize their team. None of us actually, I would say that they have lost people during those days. Even the senior advocates, and Ms. Nagpal will agree, most of them had the same kind of team which continued during the entire pandemic while virtual hearing was happening. But what it did was a very different kind of aspect has happened. In 2019, when firms were being ranked by whosoever ranks, and I mentioned one of the rankings, the quality law firms, if you ask me at that time, were around 40 to 50. Today, they are around 70 to 80.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about law firms which pays on time, recruits, mentors, and they have serious billing year after year, and there is no fight of UAD happening. Now, today, if those rankings happen, even firms like us, which were in the mid-30s, will have to fight harder. And these are all younger lawyers. And these are all younger lawyers who have come out of big law firms and have started their enterprise. Ashima will agree what I'm saying. I know at least 10 or 15 law firms which have come out of after 2019, which were not in existence. And I'm not talking about the large ones like Sharaf and Company, which came out in a very big manner. I'm talking about very small niche firms which have come. That's the development number one. The development number two is virtual hearing has been a boon for all the GCs and the large public sector hearings. So I remember my firm, my litigation partners doing series of arbitrations where clients were not actually initially interested to have that many arbitrations. Now everybody is going through arbitrations because they are cutting on the cost, on the hotel, on the air travel. Most of the arbitrations are happening virtually. Even with the retired Supreme Court judges, they don't want to do the physical arbitrations. And those arbitrations have saved clients 40 to 70% of the entire cost, which was there earlier.
Thank you, Nia. Your quick comment, and then we go to Mr. Lamba.
So I would agree with Mr. Mishra completely. We as a setup didn't really go through any downsizing through the pandemic. We were in fact hiring. What we weren't hiring was maybe say that much support staff, because suddenly we didn't have to send around files and suddenly you didn't have to coordinate on crazy photocopying. And that's a good thing. I think as a moral conscious, we lawyers end up wasting a lot of paper, and suddenly the shift with even the super seniors to their iPads or any other digital way of working has been phenomenal, which is a good move. But I think we're back to, increasing the sizes of our teams. 2023 saw a fair number of increase, both not just in lawyers and juniors, but in terms of even the number of interns who were coming in and support staff. And I think that has been a good thing. And I see that trend just continue aggressively through 2024. And there is so much opportunity out there. Again, like with what Mr. Mishra said, the whole niche setup of boutique outfits coming up is actually growing. And I feel there is a lot of clients who are more comfortable with that because there's a lot more personalized attention. There is more fast timed response and cost effective. So
thank you so much. I'll come back to you. We got a law firm perspective, both in terms of the entrepreneurial activity where top partners of law firms have set up new firms, recruiting activity continues to grow, virtual hearing. But let us bring in Mr. Lamba, who as the GC of the DLF's AeroCity developers has a ringside view of what's happening, and he can possibly give us a view from the corporate side. Mr. Lamba, what are your opening comments in terms of what were the highlights of 2023 and what will remain the same in 2024 and what will change in 2024?
Thank you, Mr. Batra. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. 23 has been a very good insofar as the economy is concerned. The GDP is about to kiss $4 trillion, if it is not already kissed. The market capitalization of the Indian stock market is over $4 trillion. Last year, it gave a return. Today's newspaper, which is before me, says around about 19%. And if you look at gold has appreciated, silver has appreciated, FDs, even the interest rates have appreciated. It's 6.4% return. So if you look at 19% is not a small return from the stock market which has come. The manner in India has become the most populous country in the world in this year. Twitter has become X. We have had earthquakes in Turkey. And we have also had two wars which are going on, one in Israel and the other in Ukraine, which people are forgetting. It's been 2 years now. The world has changed. While the whole of the world on an average would be growing at around about 3%, India is doing more than double. So which is definitely reflecting in the manner in which we do. In the next 5 years, we're going to have more aeroplanes than we had in the last 50 years. So the airline industry is booming, the hotel industry is booming, the economy is booming. So I think the legal industry is more or less booming because of the fact that the economy itself is booming. But is the legal industry in sync pace with what is happening in the economy? I think the legal industry is still sitting in the 80s and the 90s of the economy, and it has still not come out. While what we may say is correct, I would compare it rather than today with the airline industry. So, Mr. Batra, if you would recall, when did you or Mr. Sudhir, when did you first travel in an aircraft? Mr. Batra, can you recall?
1996. Late.
And Sudhir, when would have done that?
I actually never wanted to board aircraft, and all my life I tried, but 99 I had to. I was compelled in a situation. I had to start.
Welcome, Mr. Nair. Nice to see you.
Good afternoon, sir.
What you see is that the speed of the aircrafts reached its pinnacle in 1960s. After 1960, the speed of the aircraft has not increased. So if in 1990 you would have boarded an aircraft, and if you boarded today, the experience is not really very different. From a consumer perspective, the speed is the same, the price is the same, the amount of time it takes, only you have a screen before you and nothing else has changed. So after, I think, for the last 25 years since I joined law, nothing much has changed.
Very well.
The manner in which the courts deliver judgments, the number of judgments per judge which are delivered, the time which the judgments takes. Since 1960, the aeroplane speed has not increased, so has the judicial pace. What has the Supreme Court done? 53,000 cases. New cases were admitted, 53,000 cases decided. So ultimately, it will take 53 more years to clear the backlog if this is what the speed was. Look at the commercial cases. In Delhi High Court, I just got the figures. I can give you to the last number as well. 3,000 cases filed, 3,000 cases, commercial courts. 3,000 cases were at the beginning of the year, January. Now we have 3,300. So therefore, it will take 10 more years in order for these cases to decide. And I can also give you the number of days which is required at the beginning of, say, 2020. So in the beginning of 21st January 2023, there were 3,078 cases which are pending on the commercial suit side. Today, that number has risen to 3,296. So this is the November figure, which has been published in December. So the December figure is not available. So therefore, we are worse off than where we started off. So in the beginning of year, the average number of days for the disposal of cases was 1,153. By the end of this year, it has become 1,576. The number of hearings it takes to decide a case in the beginning of the year was 21. Today it is 26. So ultimately, I do understand that things look rosy and pretty, but if these numbers of the Supreme Court, and if I were to go to the larger numbers which are there, they are absolutely not impressive. So in terms of speed, in terms of disposal, in terms of work, I don't think so. At least the published numbers tell a story which is very promising. So I think while the Indian economy, there is nobody will have a doubt whether in 3 years or 4 years or 5 years, that's the debate we may have, but we'll become a $7 trillion economy in spite of what's happening in the legal industry. Let me also give you something. How many bills? 23 bills were introduced in the monsoon session, 17 in the winter, in the budget session 6 and 1. One in the special session, 47 in all were introduced. So therefore, out of which, so that's on the legislative side. So probably even legislative side, we are doing the IPC, the evidence, the CRPC will be substituted by the new bills. We will have a data protection bill. We will also have a new telecommunication bill. So I think legislative and executive side, you still find something which is happening. The point is, we feel sitting on the legal side that we have the best judges, best legal system, best lawyers, and new IT systems, everything has been introduced. But when you go to the scorecard, I am not sure how somebody can read it that what we have done that we can be proud of. And it seems that we have performed very, very poorly, but the economy has done well. So will the disputes and the lawyers will do well. So we will earn more money out of adjournments rather than effective hearings.
Thank you so much. And while we at BW Legal will focus on the intersection of business and law, but you're right in your comments, and it was a later question to ask you that the Bharatiya Saksha Sanhita 2023, the Bharatiya Nagrik Suraksha Sanhita bill, and the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita replacing the IPC Code of Criminal Procedure and the Indian Evidence Act have been passed. How will they? So it may take 6 to 10 months for them to come into play. How will they play out? So we'll come to that. But at this point, let me also welcome Mr. Arvind Nair, who's a senior and is very well known in the legal fraternity. Mr. Nair, welcome. He just attended a court hearing. He had a representation and he's just come out of that. Thank you, Mr. Nair. I'd like to ask you what has changed in the last 1 year in the business and legal domain. What are your highlights for 2023 in your mind? And what is likely to happen in 2024? Can you give us a segue into what do you think should change in 2024? And what do you think will definitely change in 2024?
I'll do that. But before I was listening with a lot of interest and with a lot of attention to what my friend Mr. Lamba was saying. And, Manish is actually the beacon as far as his line is concerned. He's one of the best known GCs. So I think what we've got from him is the client perspective. But having heard him with a lot of attention, I have something to say in response. You see, when we talk of the pace of how cases are decided in India, and the judicial areas. We know we've been waxing eloquent about judicial areas for, I think, at least 2 decades now, since we got bodies who have been compiling data. The only note that I must add here is we all know about judicial areas, we all know PACE, and we know it is troubling and a matter of concern for the client, from the client perspective, one. Also for this, what the government is emphatically focusing on, which is the ease of doing business. So these are two, I should say, audiences for whom the pace or the lack of it, as far as the system here is concerned, is a concern. But let me say one thing. I personally feel, given the situation, given all the terms and conditions, and I use that for lack of a better word, in our country, the allowance that we make for other fields should also be made for the judicial system. And let me give you examples. We all talk about progress, but then we come back, when we come to AQI or the level of pollution in our cities and our towns, we say, no, we can't compare with the United Kingdom, we can't compare with Belgium, we can't compare with France, because the situation here is different. We are an agriculture dependent nation. We have farmers, we have auto drivers, we have cab drivers. We can't put them out of business. So we make that allowance, number one. Whenever we talk of the growth of the economy, and somebody points out as a matter of concern the situation of traffic, the situation of our population statistics, the number of people, which of course we made huge strides in reducing the number of people below the poverty line. We make this allowance because we then say that, you realize India is not a very easy country to govern. There are so many pulls and pressures here. There are so many different states. There are so many stakeholders, and there are so many contrasting interests. So we make all those allowances for a lot of parameters where there is still a lot to be done. So therefore, the point that I'm making is I'm not defending. I'm all for a faster pace of deciding cases, and I'll come to that when I answer Dr. Batra, the question that Dr. Batra put to me. But I feel that the allowance that we make for other fields for not catching up with parameters at the speed at which we should be because of the way this country is structured, I think we need to make the same allowance for the judicial system as well. We can't have a different, and I'm saying this with optimism, and I'll give you an example. I'm doing a lot of work in IBC. Of time-bound legislation, the tribunals are working very hard. I mean, I can give you an example of both the NCLT and NCLAT, where I appear quite regularly in Delhi. You have judges who are straddling between benches. In the morning from 10:30 to 1:15, they do one bench. Then from 2:15 or 2:30, they do a second bench. I have personal experience of appearing in matters which are fixed at 3 p.m., which are fixed at 4 p.m. There is also something, I've recently appeared in something which was fixed at 4:15 p.m. The problem is the weight of numbers. You can start a tribunal, you can come out with an act, and you will run the risk in about 6 months or about 2 years, in a period ranging between 6 months to 2 years, you run the risk of it being overwhelmed by the weight of numbers. That is a problem. Having said that, now just to very quickly answer Dr. Batra's question, I think the strides that we've made in 2023, we all know about bills being passed. We all know about several old redundant laws having been discarded. We all know about the development of law in the IBC and other spaces. I think the biggest development is, which will at some point have a very positive impact in reducing the pace of decision-making also, is the acceptability of technology having made such an impact in the profession. I think now it's a given that you can attend a hearing, you can make final arguments by virtual mode. All courts are having that technology. In fact, there were some courts which, for lack of logistical support, were perhaps not catching up. But I think due to the pronouncements of our Honorable Chief Justice of India in the last 2 months, even that's been corrected. So I think that's improving. That, I think, to my mind, is the single most important development that has happened. And that will ensure, I think we'll see its effect maybe in about a year or 2 or 3. So that's one. And it's also taken care of accessibility. There were days, since my friend Mr. Lamba talked about adjournments, there were days when lawyers could come out of a court having agreed to an adjournment and the client wouldn't question them. Today, I think there is a far higher level of scrutiny from briefing councils, from clients, from corporates, from GCs, from individuals. So I think justice has actually come to all of our doorstep, because everybody today can log into a link and see what is happening. I think that, to my mind, is a very, very positive development as far as the judicial system is concerned. I don't want to,
I'll just add one anecdote there. I remember this was the 2G investigation was going on before Justice Singhvi's bench in the Supreme Court. Because all the players were so involved and they were so hyper, so there were various BBM groups those days made, and we used to keep, literally, my typing speed was, I don't know what, with all the typos then, but today, I think clients are so robust because they all have their links. Before you send it to them, they all have their links and they are more clued on with what's being said, what's being interpreted. So that leeway to even say, oh, I was in court, but it just got passed over, is gone for us. From the senior counsel down to the junior counsel, briefing counsels junior, they know who's standing where, who's saying what. Or before the matter, you were briefing so-and-so in their ear. They know everything.
And also preparation. Today, now you can't bluff your way through and get over lack of preparation. If you're not prepared, it will show. Somebody will be logged in and will call you out on that.
Yeah. And I think technology, AI...
Transparency and real time is something which is certainly commendable, which has happened. But I'm thinking, if the time permits, there is one case which is Yashpal Jain versus Shushila Devi. I read it today morning itself. Anurag, you can do a complete session on this case.
Okay, and I'm sure it is significant. I'm not aware of the case.
See, what's significant is that it identifies. So if at the end of this session, if there is some time, I'll read 2 or 3 paragraphs from that case. So what happened is Live Law comes up with these top 100 cases. So I saw this case which was there listed called Yashpal Jain versus Shushila Devi. The name was very unusual. I had not heard about it. The judgment came in October, and it lists. There is one paragraph which says that how delays happen in the court. Then there is whole amount of data which is there, what has happened insofar as the national judicial data which is there. It cut, copy, paste the entire data, that how the courts are performing and what is the actual picture. Then there is very good 4 paragraphs of good legal literature. So therefore, those are some of the best paragraphs which I have read in the last 1 year. And then there are some 12 suggestions which the judge makes with respect to how to improve the system.
Yeah.
So sometimes somebody can read it, or probably some part of it, if the time permits, I will read it. That summarizes the entire position which has happened, and it gives. So the suggestions which have been given, that it's about a case which has taken 41 years to reach the Supreme Court and still not decided. And the 12 suggestions which the Supreme Court judge gives, those are all basic and rudimentary. That means please follow the law.
You believe that we have to be able to, as some of our legal professionals keep saying, there's a difference between justice and law. We want justice, we don't want law. But we'll come to that. That's the entire... Mr. Nair, I want a quick comment before I bring in Ashma to conduct the future. You deal, as a senior, you deal with law firms. What has changed about law firms in the last 12 months? And what should change about law firms in the future to make them better? I know you will only focus on the positive aspect, but just to be real, if you can give us some insight, because you deal with all the law firms.
I think, the level of professionalism has really gone up. It was, most of our well-known law firms were always very professional, but they've raised the bar. I think the level of preparation, and let me take this opportunity to commend people at the junior level, and I mean people who put in 2 years in the profession or 5 years or 7 years. I think some people at that level are so good and they are so brilliant, they are so confident, they are so exceptional in addressing the court that it also challenges us to do better. I think that's we have some very intelligent and some very hardworking people, very focused people coming in. In fact, I don't want to take names, but I was appearing in a matter in a very bitterly contested matter in before the National Company Law Tribunal. This was last month or recently, and there were various parties, all led by senior counsels, and there was a a junior associate who's probably put in 5 years in the profession, and I think the senior counsel who was leading her wasn't there, but her quality of making submissions was so good that I think whoever the senior counsel would not have been able to add to anything to what she couldn't do or couldn't convey or couldn't achieve. So I think the level of professionalism, the quality that we are seeing, that is exceptional, and of course the absolute embracing of technology. I think we've also learned. So I think those are the two positives.
Thank you so much, Ashima. All yours for you to ask more questions and get into cross law.
Thank you, Dr. Kutta. Thank you so much for leading the way for this conversation today. I will now like to get into the specifics, panelists. Mr. Mishra, coming back to you, you mentioned a lot about ESG. Let's hear from you. What has been the key highlight for COP28 and ESG, and what should India be looking forward to in 2024?
I was knowing, Ashima, you will come with very specific factual kind of thing. So COP Dubai, if I call it, or COP UAE, if I call it, that has been the worst climate summit ever in the history of climate restoration. And India is no exception. We hardly promised anything. We had done a lot of work on Egypt, Paris. We were working on specific targets, but it may be the reason could be the geography, because all the oil companies were at the forefront of these negotiations. The specifics, if you will ask me, just one day before the final conclusions, when the term sheet was being prepared, Al Gore, ex-vice president of USA, who is one of the topmost climate activists in the world, actually came out and openly said, this is going to be a disaster. We are not saying the right thing. We have to phase out the fossil fuel. We have to put a deadline. And you are expecting the host to participate in such a thing when their entire economy is dependent on the fossil fuel. So climate negotiations and the tamasha of attending COP, and I was purposefully avoiding this year to go there. I think India was far, far better, and there's something which is going to happen in course of next 24 months in this country. India was far, far better in 1990s and 2000 when you had a forest bench, you had a very active National Green Tribunal. Some of the issues which Manish has mentioned, they would be hard-hitting, but they are the fact actually. You had a vibrant Supreme Court on every Friday. Hari Salve, amicus of the court, we all were assisting him. From 2 o'clock to 4:15, only wildlife, biodiversity, forest, and the trees were being protected. For a country of 140 crore people, you had a 9% of forest cover at the time of independence. You have a 16.5% forest cover today, thanks to all those stalwarts who were there, whether Justice Kuldeep Singh, right up to Justice Lahoti. They were just mad and passionate about it. Today, if you ask me, my own petition, Mr. Nair has appeared in them, and Neha has filed a petition in her own name, and I'm keen to hear from her why she went in that direction. You know, when a lawyer decides to file a petition in his own name, I have done just one petition in my life. That is for Delhi air pollution. In 2015, it is still going on. That too, when the Chief Justice at that time asked me. And it is tagged with court on its own motion and Sudhir Mishra of the Union of India. And ask me, and I'm saying it today, that if I have a wish today, I'll rather withdraw that petition. Because as Arvind very rightly said, AQI is not important. Roads are not important. On Christmas, on the night of Christmas, I got a message and related to my chartered accountant asking about that, have I done this one and have I not done that? So you are living in a country where everything is perfect. Our economy is growing great. We are making great money. We are recruiting people. We are amplifying middle classes. I would say legal sector per se, if you ask me, the kind of opportunities which is happening in ESG space, every law firm I know, they are trying to get people from us because we have got all the awards in the last 5 years for ESG, environmental law practice. There is a lot of work happening. But if you really go behind it, are we careful about our water? What is going to happen to water in Gurgaon? Where will we find water? What is going to happen to the AQI? You are chartbuster out of 20 most polluted cities in the world. You have 16 and 4 of them are in
So
Pakistan.
what is going to happen to
So,
the future generation? Today, you have 6-month, 8-month-old children or 2-year-old children getting
yeah.
asthma.
So now, Neha, just imagine MCI, Medical Council of India, has started telling doctors to write as one of the causes as pollution.
Yeah.
That जैसे अगर आप
Right.
cigarette पीते हो तो आपको बोलते हैं कि your smoking is, so they're writing
Right.
it. Nobody cares. So then AIMS has started a clinic in AIMS. They have started a pollution-induced or lungs diseases. You will be surprised nobody goes there. The reason is we are the same people who, on the name of any XYZ reason, will burst crackers despite our children stopping us from doing them. What are we talking about? You see what is happening. Your economy is doing great guns. All of us are in agreement. Our cars, we have a waiting period for Thar for 20 months. Okay.
For the Kia Carnival.
Atal Tunnel, I was reading somewhere that 5 kilometer jam in all the hill station. I'm so happy I'm not going anywhere after many, many years. Actually, I'm staying here. And it's so pleasant to be just being home or in some cocoon where you can find some bliss. So I think the real challenge would be for India with your 7 trillion economy, third biggest economy, Sone ki Chidiya, Ram Raj, Purushottam, all that is great. But the biggest problem you are going to face is where will you find water? How will you live in these cities? And when will we start treating that 200 plus AQI is dangerous to live? So I'm quite pessimistic about them, much more in agreement with Manish, doing my part, whatever I can do. So I'll just say something very interesting. Why I become a little bitter about it. Just 1 second. Just 1 second. Just one point.
Yeah.
So last December, something very interesting happened. I started doing a report how Delhi's air is better this year. Because we realized that Delhi air was very good November onwards last year. Just remember that.
Yeah.
So I found that there was a campaign going on in Haryana where villages after villages were convinced not to burn Parali. So with OP Jindal's support, we did a report on that. Trust Legal, OP Jindal, Arthur D. Little, and Terry did a report. 600 villages, people had moved from village to village and told them not to burn Parali. So there was lesser pollution on account of that in Delhi. Now, what will you do ideally? You will try to do a report. It can be told to the entire world. We made a report. I can't release that report. Because if that report is released by Haryana, then it means there is a pollution because of agriculture burning waste. अब आप क्या करोगे? Sorry,
Right, Mr. Lamba, bringing you in on that point.
The future is very bright. I'm only talking about the past. With my and your generation gone, the new generation will do a very good job. We have not done what we were expected to do. But if you look at it, I said that we have become the most populous country, but look at the same time what's happening. Our fertility rate has come down to 2. That means we are not adding people. Look at what is going to happen. We are going to peak in 2060 or something. In 2100, our population is going to be 100 billion from 140 billion that we are today. So therefore, food will not be a problem. Water will not be a problem to that extent. Energy, in the last 10 years, if you look at it, what have the cars done? I said you what aeroplanes have done. Your car used to give 8 kilometers of an average. Now it gives a 25 kilometers of average, depending upon if you were to drive a small car. Not big cars like which you would drive. But if you look at it, what is going to happen? And the hope is that from liquid hydrogen or the coal and things of that nature, hydrocarbons, we will move to hydrogen. Once we are able to break through and once we are able to create green hydrogen, this entire problem of fuel and this population and this cars, the entire Indian railways is going to run on hydrogen fuel. And what will be the residual? Residual will be water. So what I'm trying to say is that today we are saying that my friend Arvind also said that look at the limitations that we are working for. Look at some of the figures I just saw insofar as the positive figures as well. If you look at today, the amount of transactions that we are doing online. I just saw this in today's newspaper only, and it says that so where we want to do is we are doing 46.8 billion transactions online, direct money transfer. That's what we are doing. China is doing 18 and US is doing 1.8. So therefore, I think this population and we have seen this population growing, becoming the most populous country. Environment, I think rather than worrying about liquid hydrogen, hydrocarbons and the coal, we must look at technology. We must look at a situation where hydrogen becomes a fuel of choice and there is green hydrogen. All these problems will be sorted out. And what we are not looking at is that insofar as our environment is concerned, I'm quite sure with people like you and the work which you have done for the trees and things of that nature, most of this population which comes from the growth of, say, what did we do with the agricultural bills?
Yeah.
If the three of them would have been there, would this problem would have been there? Look at the manner. Our needs were different when we were growing wheat and rice. What we required was carbohydrates. Today, that carbohydrates need is going to come down, fruits and vegetables and other things, and barley. The crops will have to change. What are we exporting today? Sugarcane, which consumes the large amount of water. So we had no food to eat 20 years ago. So we had no problem when the Green Revolution took place. So today, another revolution is that white revolution has to take place, a blue revolution has to take place, a hydrogen revolution has to take place. And I think in the next 10 to 15 years, things will be better. We had
Right.
just the problem to feed so many mouths for the last 20, 20, 30 years. And we have done not much. So rather than saying that insofar as the South, nobody will buy it. People don't burn your and my grandmothers used to cook on koila. That is no longer used. Wood is no longer used. Today we have, while the West uses it for the purposes of heating, we use liquid gas for the purposes of cooking.
Right, sir.
I'm just waiting for this hydrogen revolution to happen.
Absolutely. We hear you, sir. And clearly, today has been all about environment, but we'd also like to take the conversation back to the legal revolution, which was, the topic today. So coming back to Neha, I think you have a few judgments with you that you can take us through in terms of what have been the highlight or what has been the order of judgments that have taken, say, white collar crime or other areas that you work in for you. What has been the scorecard?
So I think there have been a few. I think definitely the personal insolvency judgment was a sword that was hanging on a lot of people's heads, including lawyers and of course promoters and other people who'd given personal guarantees. That has come as, it was the evident that was going to happen, but it's still come as a little bit of a setback. Oh, but the good thing is, the silver lining is, it now leaves room for all of us to sort of use our gray matter a little extra to find ways and develop an area of law which needs to be developed. The biggest area of concern here is going to be what assets of an individual will constitute his estate. Will it be the assets he has purchased out of his own earnings, or do we even go back to ancestral assets?
Could we have the judgments from you, Neha, in, because time is flying, so maybe
so so that is one, the personal insolvency judgment by the Supreme Court in November this year. The other big landmark judgment was the Pankaj Bansal M3M case judgment, which sort of laid, and I was, I think, fortunate enough to have worked on the personal insolvency matter also in the Pankaj Bansal matter. That was an unprecedented thing that happened. So with the twin conditions on bail, the entire argument in Vijay Mandan Lal Chaudhary when they upheld the resurrection of twin conditions was, look, there is a higher yardstick to arrest. They have to, unlike the CRPC, in the ED or SFIO or any other agency where the twin conditions apply, they're arresting, they have to give reasons to believe for that arrest. Most times, those reasons to believe were never given. This challenge was taken up in the Pankaj Bansal matter, right from the High Court to the Supreme Court. Now, what Supreme Court did was very interesting. They said they interpreted Vijay Madanlal Chaudhary. So they said that is the Bible when it comes to money laundering, but the Bible also needs interpretation. Two, between Vijay Madanlal Chaudhary and Pankaj Bansal, there had been the Senthil judgment, which had also raised this point of arbitrariness and arrest without reasons to believe. But Pankaj Bansal kind of took that a notch higher and said, not only are you going to be released on bail, but the arrest is illegal. And when you are not given reasons, orally reading out reasons is not sufficient, because they actually went into criminal psychology and said the mindset of the person who's being told that, look, boss, you're being arrested right now, is obviously shaken up.
Yeah.
And to set aside an arrest was a very bold decision, which has kind of also laid down procedure for most of the agencies which have this requirement in law.
Right.
That then got to be tested again in the Supertech matter, Ram Kushal Arora, where there has been some clarification given. But in the meantime, the Chandigarh High Court interpreted Pankaj Bansal in Pranav Gupta's case, which is the Ashoka University matter.
Yeah.
Where they said that, look, reasons to believe have to be given also, but you have to do the arrest within 24 hours. You can't keep someone in 24 hours for 24 hours and at the 27th hour go arrest them. That's against the law. So they were released for that purpose. That was one set of the line. Then came a very another interesting aspect is, again, with these twin conditions on bail, there is a proviso which says a sick and infirm person has to be kind of given a little leeway, and so does a woman. Delhi High Court in Bindu Rana's case applied the proviso, gave her bail, but also entertained the merits.
Right.
Similarly, Delhi High Court again in Preeti Chandra's case did the same thing.
Right.
These matters, Preeti Chandra first came to Supreme Court, where Supreme Court said, hang on, it is an exception, but it's not a mandatory exception. You have to see the facts. It's a discretionary sort of exception. That has been upheld by the Supreme Court in Soumya Chaurasia, which is an ED provision. So I think there's been a lot of play in the joints and finer nuances that have been developed. Now, all these nuances will be again tested in various manners with the new code coming in, and we'll see how things can change around.
So Neha, let me ask you here, we've all seen or heard the criticism on the ever far-reaching powers of ED. Now, where do you see 2024 taking us? Do you see these powers, being curtailed or remaining the same?
I think it's a very tough one to answer, but I think the ecosystem for a little bit is going to remain as is. That's my honest hunch.
And with the, the context here is with the reform in our criminal code and all these other laws. And it is a deeper change. It is not just a facelift of our criminal code. So what do you see? Do you see things straightening out better? I mean, of course, we await the notification, but is it a double-edged sword that it's going to create more chaos?
I don't know. It might just, because any kind of change. See, a change is more difficult than introducing something totally new, because first you have to unlearn what you know and then relearn. Yeah. So it's going to be a tad bit difficult for all of us also. We're very used to, and I quote Mr. Mahesh Jethmalani here, in the Rajya Sabha, he actually told the Honorable Vice President that we have an emotional sentiment to Section 420 of the IPC. It's been used in movies, that there was a movie called
400 BC.
And he said, I grew up with my father telling me 400 BC mat karo. So it's going to be at that psychological level.
Yeah.
Of course, the interpretation of the law, see what the new process does is, the new CRPC, it also brings in a lot, it legitimizes what was already being done, but legitimizes it is use of electronic records and electronic data and electronic support to conduct trials, which is going to be a great thing, but we also have to see if there is the ecosystem to support it. I'm sure that will be, and which will be a great thing. One big thing is also that the whole process of separation of trials, if one of the accused has not come in. Today, he can be tried in absentia. We'll have to see how that has to play out. Also, proclaimed offender provisions have been made applicable to a lot more provisions, a lot more offenses. It was not the case earlier. Police remand has suddenly been extended by from 14 days to 60 days. We have to see how that plays out. So it's going to be a very interesting dynamic. It's going to be a lot of learning, unlearning. So I'm excited.
And sorry, Neha, just wanted to know one personal thing because I have been working on the surrogacy thing. And in fact, I wanted to update you that as a law firm, we were part of the parliamentary proceeding when Sushma Swaraj had put the surrogacy bill.
Wow.
So when you took up this matter, I know the pain point of it. We'll discuss it some other time.
Definitely.
Absolutely, Mr.
But I will answer your
had that
question.
side
Why
note
did I
from
file?
What made you
Why
do
did-
that and how important it is? How important it is for you? I want to hear from you.
Okay.
Sorry, Ashim, I just tried to help
No,
you.
sir, absolutely.
Sure,
Something
Neha.
which is very close to my heart. I think the nicest compliment I ever got as a lawyer was that you function from your heart. And I'm not bragging about this, but I think if you don't, we're all here for a purpose which is far greater than our day jobs.
Right.
It's far greater than even our family. It's far greater than ourselves, which is just generally to be happy, to spread love. The joy that one gets from family or from nurturing a family is unparalleled. So way back in 2017, one of my best friends, he's a gay man. He comes with a lot of privilege. He and I were having, I think it was early 2018, we were having a dinner and he was cribbing about, I'm illegal in this country. I can't do this, but we're still investing here. I sat there and said, look, you're one man with access, with privilege. Do something about it to change the situation or don't crib. You can't have it both ways. So we filed his writ petition in the Supreme Court, which then led to decriminalization of homosexuality on the 6th of September 2018. Fast forward 5 years, I was sitting with a couple of single girls, and we all started talking about, oh, but back in the day, so and so could do it back in the day, but single women are prohibited. I said, but hang on, single women are not prohibited. Then I read up the act and I realized, interesting. Single unmarried women have been marked as a different category altogether.
Yeah.
I said, we all live in the hope that one day we will all find our companions, we will all find our partners.
Yeah.
Forget that aside. But what if somebody genuinely wants to be a single mother? That's not what I want to do.
Joy of being a mother. Joy of being a mother.
Joy of motherhood is sans the joy of, I think,
companionship or anything.
Companionship. It's the most universal feeling. And I was like, how can by law that be denied to any human being?
So
And also when it is allowed for divorced women.
Exactly. And divorced. How is a single woman who's divorced or widowed different from a single unmarried woman?
There is another dimension to it. Another dimension. When we do the settlement talks of the husband and wife, and husband and wife are fighting bitterly, but so far as the companionship is concerned, nobody's bothered. But so as the fatherhood or motherhood is concerned, the courts are bothered because that's sacrosanct. Courts say we take a different stand. So even that is a very important argument for you.
Exactly. And I'll tell you something. It's not just about motherhood. I think fatherhood is also just equally.
So I said the same.
Nothing completes a man as much as being a father does.
Exactly. So this is what you went with.
So I sat there and I asked one of these girls, I said, will you file a petition? Initially, they were all like, yeah, okay, we'll do it. 24 hours later, the dust settles. Everybody backed off. I sat there, I said, 5 years ago, I told my best friend this. He changed the law, it was a different story. But I said, listen, why be a hypocrite? If I could push him to do it, then it's also my right at some level. Let me do it. Mr. Saurabh Kirpal and Menika Guruswami, I spoke to both and they were both so reluctant. They were just like, are you crazy? Are you crazy? I said, listen, ab to draft ho gayi hai, ab file bhi ho rahi hai, appear ho jana. But I don't think I've ever cried in court. And it was very awkward and odd being in the Supreme Court, taking out my band and gown.
Yeah,
and
I have gone to Delhi High Court in same manner.
I didn't know my status. And I, for the first time, felt the anxiety of a litigant. And it's very easy to tell a litigant, calm down, just calm down. They're just a debate between court and the lawyer, just calm down. Here, this was Neha Nagpal, not the lawyer, but Neha Nagpal, the petitioner. And there was anxiety, there was anxiousness. So it was a very, professionally, it was a defining moment. Legally, it was a challenging moment. Personally, it was an overwhelming moment.
It's a very
well put,
Ashima, just to compliment her, it's a very big deal today to do a writ petition of any manner, any issue which is basically not limited to her. It's a larger public cause, actually.
Yeah,
And
in
to
the name of
apply
love.
it in the Supreme Court and then get this court to indulge in it and issue
Yeah,
notice
it
to
wasn't
central
easy,
government.
sir. It took 2 days to convince the bench
I'm
to
totally sure about it, how difficult the times have changed.
it was listed, and there is a whole series of petitions which challenge the Surrogacy Act, but they're very case basis where applications have been made to the board. So till today, there have been multiple hearings, over 20 hearings on this issue in the last 2 years, but never has the court really deep dived into the legality of the act. They've all moved on the premise that the act तो है, अब है तो है, but अब आप आगे चलो, हम आपको बोर्ड को रेफर कर देते हैं, बोर्ड को डायरेक्शन दे देते हैं. This was the first time the court sat back and said, oh, okay. And literally, so it took a whole, and I in my head was like, petitions are pending, notice will be issued. It's a no-brainer. Even if Mr. Kirpal or because they were so reluctant that I was petitioner in person. I kid you not, it took us day one, where the bench was almost dismissing it. We pleaded to have it the next day to come back with a little bit more research. Even the second day was a full 1.5 hour argument. And I had a few lawyers standing around in court asking me, but yeah, where is your band? Where is your court? What are you doing?
सब ऐसे ही करते हैं, हाँ.
It's a petitioner in person here. But it was a task. It wasn't easy.
And absolutely, Neha, we wish you the very best forward in the matter, and kudos to you for having taken up this resilient war against or for the rights of
In the
women.
name of love.
In the name of love, oh, absolutely, and family.
Yes.
So God bless all. And Mr. Lamba, coming back to you for your key takeaway as we move to our closing remarks. We've already gone over time and had a lovely discussion, but one key takeaway or prediction for 2024 that you're looking forward to as a GC, something that the businesses are looking forward to in 2024, which is going to be material to compliances or the in-house legal departments in terms of the expenses or cost?
So I think some legislations which have outlived their utility, like the old rent control acts and things of that nature, the government came out with something, a model tenancy act. Some of these things, if they were to come about, they will bring ease of doing business. They will make life easier. Similarly, I would also say, let's take, for instance, if you want to make everything online and everything paperless, as Diha was talking about, then why do you require signatures? Why don't you accept digital signatures in the court, at least for the companies? Why do you want a oath commissioner stamp or a notary stamp? What purpose does it serve? Why does the registry require still a round stamp to be put in and a 1 rupees 25 paisa ticket to be put in? I think it's time that we understand and we all know that there are certain things which are just not necessary at all. So if we are going towards online filing and things of that nature, we must come up with digital signatures. We must come up with digital payments of the court fees and things of that nature. We must come up with registration. Everything you can do it digitally today, but insofar as the Act itself, IT Act is concerned, you can't go and register your power of attorney or your lease deed or your sale deed electronically.
Right.
So if these things, if law was to improve in this direction, probably I think there are, I think if we were to be true to CPC alone and some good practices, our courts will be able to deliver judgments in a year's time, and will be faster than both London and Singapore. But what we completely lack, apart from resources, is the will.
Right.
So I think that is where we need to change. And I think Neha has made us all emotional. I never thought that this would turn out to be, and today happens to be Rudyard Kipling's birthday.
Oh, wow.
So again, what it requires is, if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you but not too much, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that is in it, and which is more, you'll be a man, my son. So I think that man-like quality is nothing to take away from women. That is what we require. And if you look at dependency and things of that nature, if some people were to put their heads together, I think it is not an unsolvable problem. I did hear Mr. Nair say that the limitations, that the concessions which we provide to other, time has come. If a case was to take 40 years, we will give you no concession.
Very well said, Mr. Lamba. I'll again bring in Mr. Nair, who's here with us. Mr. Nair, I know your video is off. If you're still with us, would you please join us? We'll wait for Mr. Nair to join us in case he's still around.
I think he's gone into call.
Yeah, he might have. I mean, I see him logged in, but maybe he has moved out to his matter again. But Mr. Mishra, coming back to you, here's a person, Mr. Lamba, who has listed some pain points, redundancies in the system, his hopes for 2024, how things can be bettered. What is your one thought or last thought on this?
My last thoughts are that we'll have Indian legal sector completely opened up. This is what I feel, and it should happen maybe after the general elections. It will be very speedy. You had one Denton, by brand name Denton in India with Link Legal.
Yeah.
And now you will have dozens of law firms which are consulting all the major consulting companies in UK and other places. US is still waiting, and Japan is waiting. Singapore law firms are waiting, but Middle East and UK are very excited. That's my first future prediction that will happen. The second thing is, I truly believe that you will say that again, you have got green in picture, but I think virtual hearing has really saved a lot of papers, and it has really helped. Indian virtual hearing system is being talked about in most of the jurisdictions are talking about. I recorded a podcast with Reed Smith, and they are one of the good respected firm on green arbitrations. And I realized how much India is being quoted on number of arbitrations we have managed to do during the pandemic and post it. And the third is, my own feeling is what Neha and others also said very clearly. See, robust hiring will happen. Because the Indian economy was too small, and we are like a swelling middle class. The economy is doing very good on many parameters, and legal will benefit. So a lot of good hirings will happen. More quality law firms will come, which I know personally how many good law firms have come in all spaces. And the last part would be, which I feel is, I truly don't know from where to start, but what Manish said and what Neha's disruptive litigation at the end of the year, I think if we can really phase out these number of sets of filing, even in NGT, we file 6 sets of physical petitions. How do we stop it completely? Like Manish put he went on specific points actually, that why do we need this? So we will have to work on those areas. These are the areas we should be working on.
Absolutely. So thank you so much, panel, for being with us today. We've had some really interesting, hard-hitting facts and things to look forward to in 2024. We look forward to an offline discussion as well to get more specifics from you. And we wish everyone a very happy new year, and may their matters resolve quickly in years to come. And we see some good light coming in 2024.
That's such a lawyer statement to have made, Ashima. Such a lawyer statement. You're learning well from us.
Basically, she's a lawyer. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much for
Happy
joining us.
all of you.
Thank you. Thank you.